Hey family, welcome back to the Nona Jones Show. Listen, this is a conversation that I have been really looking forward to because not only do we sit in a moment in time when I think this is relevant, but I personally believe that as individuals, you're going to find this conversation very needed. If we're honest, most of us have never been taught how to handle conflict well. Like, we know how to lash out, we know how to pout, we know how to shut down, we know how to even avoid the conversations, but we don't know how to lean in with love and truth. And this is a problem because difficult conversations are not going away just because we don't want to have them. They're a part of our life. So whether you're dealing with a strained relationship, maybe there's conflict at work, or maybe you're just trying to talk through some different perspectives with people, I don't know, maybe online. Sound familiar? Learning how to communicate around discomfort is essential. As a matter of fact, according to some research from Harvard Business Review, 69% of managers, 7 out of 10, say that they are uncomfortable communicating with employees, especially when it comes to giving difficult feedback. And when it comes to personal relationships, studies show that fear of conflict is one of the top reasons that people avoid necessary conversations, which leads to resentment, broken trust, and missed opportunities for growth. And so today we're going to dig into not just how to have these conversations, but how to hear them with grace and self-awareness. And I'm going to tell you, my guest today is brilliant, and she does this work for a living. So let's get into it. Hey y'all, real quick, I want to make sure that you know that if you enjoy my content, if you enjoy this podcast, if you even enjoy what I share on social media or in my e-newsletters, you need to become part of my Patreon community. My Patreon community is an exclusive community that will give you access to even more content that I make available publicly. You'll get early access to my podcasts on at least a monthly basis. I'm hosting a live Q&A to recap the conversations that I'm having, and you can join at different membership tiers depending on your budget, all right? So I want you to consider joining my Patreon community because I would love to connect with you in a deeper way. All right, now back to the conversation because it's gonna be good. So my guest today, she's a master of transformation through dialogue. She is a scholar, she is an artist, she's an author and the founder of Mosaic Education Network. She facilitates all types of trainings. I'm talking about with schools and businesses and organizations to help them build healthy cultures where people thrive. Her name is Dr. Melissa Crum, and her work is rooted in research and reflection. She helps people to not only confront bias, but to learn how to have brave conversations that build bridges instead of burning them. Let me tell you something. She is a powerful mixture of intellectual rigor as well as emotional intelligence, and she brings that into every room that she steps in. But listen to me, y'all. More important than any of that, more important than degrees, more important than credentials, she is my friend and my sister for more than 20 years. I need all of you to help me welcome the inimitable Dr. Crumb. Hey girl, how are you doing?
Hey, I feel so special. Thank you.
You should. Let me tell you something. First of all, I love saying Dr. Crumb because I knew her when she was just like Melissa, okay? But I call her Dr. Crumb because you're gonna put some respect on her name. You hear me? Like, we have a whole PhD. Like, we're not gonna be around here just talking about what's up, Melissa. No, we're gonna say, hey, Dr. Crumb.
I receive it.
Yes, girl. Thank you for joining me. And I'm really excited about this conversation. And what I want to do is, before we even get into my prepared questions, I would love for you to share a little bit just about yourself and what brought you to this work. I doubt that you just woke up when you were 5 years old and said, you know, I'm going to help people build healthy cultures in their organization and have difficult conversations. Like, what is it that brought you to this work?
Yeah, so I started really wanting to help teachers think through how do they have a more productive relationship with their students so that they could reach academic goals. And I thought it was going to be through more arts-based curriculum. So when you bring in information and history and creativity from the communities that the students come from, then they'll be more connected to the objectives and they'd be more successful. And what I found was that, yes, you can have all those kind of structures in place, but there was this variable of what the teachers thought about the communities the students come from, assumptions they make about the students' capabilities, that really colored and shaped how they showed up in the classroom. And so I started doing work in implicit bias. So helping teachers recognize what assumptions are you bringing into the classroom that's shaping what you think students are capable of. This one study from years ago, this Harvard professor, his name is escaping me, he did this IQ test that basically kind of asked teachers, that told teachers there's going to be this one group of students that are just going to have this intellectual bloom. He made up this list. It was a list of just random kids. And what he said was, the research was let's see how you treat these students on these lists versus the students that are not on this list. And what happens is they had a bunch of practices that they did with the students who were on the list that they didn't do with the students who were off the list. And it was practices like, if the students on the list didn't give a good answer, they say, well, let me give you some more time to think about that. I think you can come up with a better answer. Or they'll give them more detailed feedback. You got this wrong, but let me tell you how you got it wrong. And let me tell you how you need to think, how you can think about it next time to get it right. So these additional kinds of practices, but they did that extra work because they believed in these students. And what happens is these students' intellectual kind of scores and things went up. And again, these were random students. These were just, they weren't necessarily, there wasn't anything kind of rhyme or reason really to picking these students. And really what that helped me start to think about, how do you shape your cultures through leadership and belief in the people that you serve? And how does that shape how you engage with them? And yes, implicit bias is part of that. You can start to understand what assumptions I have about the person in front of me. But also, how am I going to change my behaviors and make that belief in them sustainable and do that work with them on a consistent kind of basis so that they're successful too. And then knowing that the reverse happens, when I think like, oh, this person isn't that smart, this person is that whatever, capable, then I'm also not going to invest in them. And so I started to move that work to not only in K-12 education, but also doing that work with museum educators and also with mission-driven organizations who want to really rethink their culture and increase retention and increase more capable leaders.
So one of the things that you said, which I think is so true, and we don't interrogate our assumptions. Like when we go into almost any environment, we're bringing assumptions with us. However, they are just, we're unaware of them. But to us, our assumptions are the reality. And I wonder if that is part of what makes conversations become difficult, because we bring assumptions to them. And so I just want to start with that question. I think you've already kind of teed it up. It's like, why are difficult conversations so hard for us? And like, what's at the root of that?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things to that. So one, I think what's at the root of people not wanting to have difficult conversations is whatever assumptions they have about how that conversation can go and what does that mean for them. So if I think this conversation is going to be hard, and I think then you're going to see me in a way that I don't want to be seen, or you're going to reject me, or you're going to critique me in ways that I don't think I'm capable of handling, then my kind of internal fight or flight, freeze, fawn, all of those kind of responses is going to guide my behavior. And I'm going to avoid that difficult conversation. And also it could be projecting. So you mentioned before around this idea of managers not wanting to give difficult feedback to their direct reports. So you might not want to give your direct report feedback, not so much that they can't handle it, but you can't handle direct feedback. And so you're projecting how you can deal with feedback onto this person. And as a DEI practitioner, like really helping people through my kind of executive coaching is helping them kind of see that awareness and what assumptions they're bringing to that conversation. You're assuming that this person can't handle your critical feedback. But also, in addition to that, there's a systemic outcome. So I had a group of male managers who had female direct reports, and they did not want to give these women critical feedback. So they would tell them that they're doing great, they're doing great. But also there was an issue with women being retained and also going up the org chart, the leadership ladder, because they didn't necessarily have the skills. Well, so much of it came back to they didn't know what skills they need to build because they didn't get critical feedback on what they need to fix. And so now you have this issue of inclusion and equity because the people who need to hear it aren't hearing it. And it's all because these particular handful of men came with their own assumptions and also a degree of fear. They're like, what if they cry? I don't know what to do if they cry. What if they cry? And what if they get really upset and emotional? I'm not going to be able to handle it. And so you're bringing all of your stuff to this conversation that's keeping you from being the leader that they need and also keeping them from growing in the organization.
Okay, so we're only like, 3-4 minutes in, and I've already had a breakthrough because one of the things you said that I literally, like, it hit me like a ton of bricks was we sometimes don't give difficult feedback, not because the other person can't handle it, but because we're afraid of what they will think of us as a result of the feedback, right? And so I was thinking back on a conversation I needed to have with an employee of mine, and I remember being in the conversation, and the feedback was basically, I have to let you go because you are not performing, right? But instead of saying that, I was just like, listen, you're good, everything's good. We're just going to keep. But eventually I did let them go, but I thought about that first conversation and it was so difficult because I was like, I don't want them to not like me. I don't want them to think I'm mean. So it ended up basically being about me. It was very much so egocentric. It had nothing to do with the employee and what they couldn't handle. And I do think that as leaders, in particular, I'm talking about leadership in this comment, but as leaders, we have to realize that it truly is not about us. It really is not about us. It's about the team. It's about the organization. It's about the culture. I'll get back to my questions in a minute, but how do you push back past that? Because I honestly think that is so fundamental, even in relationships. I think about my marriage, and one of the things my husband will say to me is he's like, I can't bring things up because you'll be mad at me if I do. And I'm just like, well, actually, I'd prefer that you bring it up so we could work through it. But in his mind, oh no, she's not going to like me if I bring this up. How do we move past that? Because if you can't get past that, that feels like blocker number one.
Yeah, and I think, you talk about it in The Gift of Rejection, and really being able to deal with our own abandonment and rejection wounds. And when I work with clients, executive coaching is not therapy, so I say this is couch work. So you need to I call it couch work, which means you gotta talk to a therapist about this. That's not what I do. But it's like you have to deal with and address whatever that rejection wound is, because your body is fearing going back to that feeling. And I don't want to feel like, if you're talking about like Tim, I don't want to feel like somebody that I love and care about is upset with me. And maybe that goes back to something he's experienced. And so that same kind of fear can show up in the workplace. I don't want this person that works for me to now think that I'm terrible, because I've had an experience where someone who had more power than me made me feel terrible. And so that's a kind of projection. So we need to be aware that that's happening. And also remembering that feelings are not facts, they're information. And so just because I feel like this person won't like me, or I feel like I'm going to be rejected or whatever, doesn't mean it's a fact. It's just a feeling to be investigated. So this is information. So why do I feel like this person won't like me? What other information do I have that tells me that that's going to be true? What other information do I have that says, like factual information from this person that says that they're no longer going to be in a healthy working relationship with me after I share this information? And if you can't produce real, actual facts, then we have to recognize that we're probably creating a narrative that's grounded in our fear. And as long as we continue to practice that kind of rejection wound work, then we can get a little better at it. And I tell folks, like, start small. Because sometimes that rejection wound doesn't even have to be with feeling that rejection doesn't even have to come with people you have a relationship with. You don't want to send your food back because you don't want the way that they think that you're terrible.
You don't like it. It is nasty. And you're like, but I don't want them to think I'm difficult, so let me not send it back.
It's like, this person don't know you, probably don't care about you. You don't really care about them, to be honest.
Right. And they don't care if you send it back because they're not the ones losing money, right? So they're like, whatever. Wow.
I mean, it's probably a little annoying or whatever, but it's like, that's our stuff that we're bringing. So practice small. Send the food back. I don't like sending food back. I just don't like doing it. But like, do something.
I have a different reason. Yeah. I'm not sure what they're doing back there with my new plate.
You sending me back something with some extra sauce on it? I'm good. I'm just gonna eat it or I'm gonna throw it in the trash. I'm good. But I think we have to be more self-aware, and that means strengthening our emotional intelligence. And part of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. What's going on in my mind and body right now? What stories am I creating right now? And am I validating them with facts? And remembering feelings are not facts. Just because I feel like this person doesn't like me doesn't mean it's true.
Hey, listen, I'm inserting myself in this conversation for just a minute because if you're enjoying this conversation and if you enjoy the many conversations that I host through my podcast, I want to invite you to join me for my free virtual masterclass, How to Bounce Back Better. My mission in life is to help you and people like you discover the power within you to not just go through stuff, not just survive, but I want you to learn how to grow through stuff, how to thrive. How to Bounce Back Better is an hour-long virtual masterclass, and I offer multiple sessions every single week. If you want to register, all you have to do is head over to nonajones.com, and you will see a big link, a big button that says free masterclass. Just click the button, and you can sign up today. I want to see you in the next masterclass because I promise you there are tools, tactics, strategies, and tips that have helped me build resilience that I want to give to you. So again, head over to nonajones.com to click the big free masterclass button and get signed up today. All right, now back to the conversation. Something that comes to mind for me as you were explaining that so beautifully is like, well, there's also another opportunity, which is let's carry that thought out, right? Like, let's just say that they don't like you. Now what? You know what I mean? Like, like what? So let's just say that your employee is upset because you gave them factual feedback that they disagree with, or you have a record of performance issues and you're reviewing it with them and they disagree. Okay, they don't like it, but you have the evidence. And so that just becomes another opportunity for you to make a decision if this is the right person on your team. I do think that part of doing the healing work is so important, though, because that conversation, you can't even get there until you start to deal with those rejection wounds. But I do think it's important. Like, let's just carry it out. What's the worst that could happen? Let's just carry it out and let's think it through. You talk a little bit about a difference between intent and impact. Why is this distinction so important when it comes to hard conversations, especially when we're talking about across the lines of difference?
I think people focus a lot on what I was trying to do versus what I actually did. And they think that their effort somehow can remove or dispel or minimize the harm that occurred. And that's just not how this works. And so one way to think about it is, this scenario that I use in my workshops is, imagine that I'm driving down the street And my grandmother is 80 something years old, and she sends me a text message. And if I know she sent me a text message, I know it took her a long time to do it. So I want to make sure I text her back. And I'm driving and I text her back. I'm trying to text her and I hit you. I get out the car and I say, hey, I'm so sorry, but I was trying to text my grandmother. She was needing some help with, trying to get on this website. And I'm looking at you on the ground. Like, this is what I was trying to do. Like, I'm not a bad person. I don't hit people regularly. Do you care?
Not at all.
You don't care. You don't care. What you care about is the impact. You want me to address the issue in that moment. You want me to get you up or get you to the hospital, call 911 or something. That's what you need me to do. You want me to address the harm in the moment. And then once we address it, get some repair work happening, then maybe I can tell you this is what happened. But you have to address the impact first. And that can be difficult because what that means is your need to want to be portrayed in a particular way has to take a back seat. That goes back to kind of like that ego work. If you knew that I didn't mean to, then maybe you might like me or you might not be as mad. And so let me explain to you that I didn't mean to say that word, or I didn't mean to talk about sexuality in that way, or I didn't really mean to talk about your race in that way, or I didn't know that word was inappropriate anymore. Like, I didn't know that. Listen, I have gay friends. I have a black teacher. Like, what are we talking about? Like, whatever it is whatever the kind of identity is, or the thing that whatever the difference is, and you might not have a great awareness or language around it, no matter what your religious affiliation is or whatever your worldview is, if your goal is not to harm, you might have you still might do that, even if that's the case. And so what we want to work on is, how do I put my defensiveness, my response to protect who I want to be portrayed as to a back seat, and have my vulnerability lead and say, you know what, I messed up. I'm sorry. I need to fix this. Let's figure out what repair looks like. And that takes a lot of work. I mean, I do this work all the time, and defensiveness is my go-to. So it's my self-awareness to have to be able to go, bring it down. Let's calm down. and even when you might not respond in your best way, again, what does repair look like? What does it look like to own that I didn't say this in the right way? I didn't say this in the right tone. Let me tell you what triggered me. And let that happen after we've dealt with the impact.
So as you were talking, right now I'm reading through the book of Matthew, and I was in Matthew chapter 5, I think, yesterday. And something that came back to me as you were describing this intent versus impact and the need to, like, I don't care what you were hoping would happen, like, this is what happened. In Matthew chapter 5, verses 23 through 24, it says, therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. So when you put this even in the context of our relationship with God, God is saying, listen, I don't even want what you have to offer me if you haven't gotten it right with the person that you have harmed first, and that word reconciled, first go and be reconciled to them. I think that's really important because one of the things that I discerned, this was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, is that reconciliation is not what happens just because you apologize. Reconciliation is so much deeper than that, because it requires not just an apology, it actually requires repentance, which is very different than an apology. An apology is, oh my gosh, you're upset, sorry that you're upset. Repentance is, I hurt you. I recognize that I hurt you, and I commit to not doing that again. That's a very different posture. And so I do think that as we approach difficult conversations, we have to understand that even God is like, go get that right first. Before you even come to me and offer me anything, get that right first. When we're the ones who need to initiate, this kind of a conversation, how can we prepare ourselves, like mentally, emotionally, and spiritually? Because the thing I think we don't want to do is we don't want to end up having our words act like gasoline on the fire. So what would you suggest?
There's a few things that I think is important. I think we first need to ask ourselves, what is the actual issue and what do we want the outcome to be? So if the issue is that, okay, Nona's not talking to me anymore and I'm not sure why. So is the conversation me trying to figure out why Nona's behavior has changed? And so being honest about something has happened and this is how I feel, and leading with kind of I statements. If you know, oh, Nona is now upset with me because I said this thing or I dropped the ball in this way, then I can come to the conversation saying, I own that I did this. I see that has changed your behavior towards me, and I would love to figure out how we can restore that relationship. So a lot of I, me, my words, not you need to get over it. This happened 3 months ago. Like, all I did was forget to send you the email. Like, and now I'm making it your problem, and that's deflecting. That's not taking ownership. That's not repair. You're the person who needs to be fixed, kind of thing. So being honest about what you own and saying, what do you want to happen differently? And so if what you want to happen differently is, I want us to go back to start hanging out again. I want us to start talking every day like we used to, and I haven't talked to you in a few weeks. Is that something that can happen? Also being prepared that might not happen. So being able to digest the possibility that our relationship may be different. So thinking about that in a workplace scenario, saying these were the expectations that you had of me. This is where I fell short. This is how I plan on. These are the systems in place that I have to make sure I don't fall short again. And I see that you took me off this stretch project. And even though I understand you made that decision, I would love to know the opportunity. I would love another opportunity to be on the next stretch project, especially if you've seen that I've been consistent in meeting my expectations. So I've said what I'm doing to repair, and I'm saying what I want to happen in the future. And that leader might put you on that next stretch project. They might not, but you've had a conversation and you can bring it back to say, hey, I saw another stretch project came up. I'm wondering if I'm in the running to be in a part of it. If not, I'd like to learn more about what I could do so you can have the confidence in me to be able to kind of live into this next leadership role. So all of that is a part of that kind of preparing, and what the kind of posture that you need to lead with that is self-awareness and vulnerability, being able to own that, I messed up, and also being proactive, and this is how I plan on being better.
That is such a great actionable framework. And I'm thinking about somebody who's watching this who is like, that sounds really great, but I messed it up so bad that I think even if I do that, they're not going to hear what I'm saying. For that type of a person who, they're probably going to get a no. They may not even get a response because they messed it up so bad. What can they do? Because that sounds like at that point, that's more just like a self-work type of thing. If you did the best you could to try to reconcile and the person's not willing, what do you suggest they do then?
I think what you said, you have to decide what do I have control over, and what am I willing to do differently? And maybe that means leaving the relationship or the workplace, wherever this is happening, and being able to say, this is, I'm a part of this, but you're not completely to blame, because reconciliation takes both people. I can't repair by myself.
That's good.
So I'm telling you, this is what I'm willing to do. That person's not willing to meet you. That doesn't necessarily mean that's completely your fault. It's not 100. You have some ownership in that because you did whatever you did, but they have to also meet you at the table. And if for whatever reason they're choosing not to meet you at that table, you have to do your work to make sure you don't internalize that form of rejection. So not to say that there's something permanently wrong with me. I like this idea that Brene Brown says there's a difference between I have failed and I am a failure. Those are completely different mindsets. And so to say, I failed at this thing and I think I lost my friend, or I think I lost the opportunity to grow in this company, and I own that, I can do that. I'm a failure means I perpetually will never have friends. I'll perpetually never be a leader ever in life. I don't have what it takes. We don't want to take on the failure the failure mindset. Esther Perel has this interesting, and I think she even took it from somebody, I'm unsure, the definition of confidence. She says confidence is knowing that I'm a flawed person but still hold myself in high regard. And so if I take that definition, then I know I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail a lot of ways. I might the day I'm a good mom, I might be not a great wife. The day I'm a good friend, I'm not a good sister. On the day you know, I own that, and I'm gonna keep working on how to fail less. But I will continue to fail, and still I'm dope at the same time.
I feel like that needs to be on a t-shirt. I fail and I'm dope.
I fail and I'm dope.
And still I'm dope. That feels like a modification to Maya Angelou's Still I Rise. It's like, I may fail in every situation, but still I'm dope.
Still I'm dope.
Come on.
But if we're able to do that internal work and really say, give ourselves grace that I can't be everything to everybody. I'm not going to be right all the time. And the holding yourself high regard means that I can find the skills, or I can do the things. I'm capable of making the adjustments to be better. I know I can do it, and I will do it. I hold myself in that high regard. But if confidence means I don't do anything wrong, I'm always right, that's arrogance. And that's now arrogance. We're someplace else. And that doesn't, and if you're arrogant, you can't make space for your own vulnerability, which means you can't make space for someone else. So if I'm coming to you to say, this is where I've done wrong, this is where I'm trying to fix it, and this is how I want to be better, and you're like, nope, don't want it, I don't care, blah, blah, blah. I'm really curious about what posture do you have internally that's keeping you from meeting me at the table?
That's actually a really good insight, because yeah, I think sometimes we assume that people who are very arrogant, that they're prideful, when the truth is their arrogance may actually just be invulnerability. Like, yeah, they're arrogant more so as a defense mechanism to say, nope, I'm the best. I never make mistakes. Y'all all suck. Because if I was to admit that I have flaws, then I would have to actually deal with myself. And so I think that's really powerful. I want to ask this final question, because I think this gets left out of the conversation around difficult conversations way too often, and that is tone. I know that online, and I'm going to say online just because a lot of difficult conversations are happening online. We assume that it is toneless, because the truth is, it is just characters written on a screen, and technically we could read it however we want to. But what role does tone play in how a conversation goes, and what should we be mindful of when we are having conversations? Certainly in person, but I would say too online.
So tone is really tricky because people get triggered by different things, and we have to let go of the fact that we don't know what people are bringing to this conversation. So we got to just kind of own that. But the general thing that I try and do is stick with I mean my statements and Socratic method. And Socratic method is just asking questions. So if somebody is saying something about, I don't know, climate change, who knows, whatever. Let's say you're very clear around the challenges around climate change, and this person is way off base. I might say something like, help me understand how you arrived at that conclusion. because that's not something that I'm aware of. What it does, it can place you in a more humble, vulnerable space because you're asking for information, and it likely lessens the person from being on the defense because now they're informing you, and that's likely what they was already trying to do anyway, is sharing with the world their their thoughts unprovoked. But you're asking them for more information, and so we don't kind of do that enough. So what does it look like to take on an opportunity and see that as a way of learning and sharing, and that be the source of our dialogue?
Oh boy, I tell you, the climate that we're in right now, like if you just say, I had a great day, somebody's going to be like, oh, so what? You think that bad days are bad now? And it's just like, I was just saying I had a great, so Lord have mercy. I think before we go into any conversations at all, we need to just pray. And I think employing these tactics that you offered hopefully will help us to arrive at a healthy reconciliation, at least a healthy conclusion, whatever that may be. If there is somebody listening right now who has maybe been avoiding a difficult conversation, what would you say is one step that they can take in the direction of having that kind of a truth plus love conversation?
I think to lead with the best case scenario as the future, and think about, is that best case scenario something that you want more than the fear that's keeping you from going to that place? So if I really want to make sure I get this leadership opportunity, or I really want to grow in this company, and I can imagine what that could be like, or I really want my friend back and I really enjoy how we've been with each other and I want that to grow, do I see that as much bigger and way more important than the fear of me starting that conversation to get to this destination? And weigh it out. And if you're thinking, no, the fear of me approaching my leader or the fear of approaching my friend is way bigger than this potential outcome, then that's what it is. And you got to think about that.
Yeah.
And it's also an opportunity to think about, is there some internal work that I need to do? And there likely is. I mean, that's everybody. I feel like everybody needs a therapist. Everybody needs I mean, Jesus and therapy.
Amen. Amen.
And being able to kind of dig into that, because what happens is we end up in isolation because we're keeping ourselves from having hard conversation, and that keeps us from having very fruitful and deep relationships.
Wow. Dr. Crumb, this has been like a masterclass in emotional intelligence. Can you please tell people where they can connect with you? Because I have a feeling people are going to need your help and your services after this.
Absolutely. I'm at MosaicEducationNetwork.com. I'm also Mosaic Education Network on Instagram. Find me at Melissa Crum on LinkedIn. LinkedIn more than anything else. I have a host of different workshops and also, of course, executive coaching if you need some side-by-side support to work with your team and your leadership goals. So, yeah.
I love it. I would say to everyone watching, one thing that I really hope you take away from this conversation is that avoiding difficult conversations does not solve them. It just prolongs them. So take all the nuggets, all the gems, all the wisdom out of this conversation and begin to apply it to your life. And I want to also leave you with a scripture, which is Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15, which says, instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. Truth in love is how we grow. So do not shrink back from difficult or hard conversations. Step into them, because healing, clarity, and connection are on the other side. I appreciate you for joining me. And until next time, know that God loves you, and I do too. And I'll see you next time. Hey friend, thank you so much for listening and maybe even watching this episode of The Nona Jones Show. If you enjoyed this conversation, I want to encourage you to become a member of my Patreon community. You see, on Patreon, you're not only going to get full-length episodes of my podcast, but you will also get early access to any new content that I share, including new podcast episodes, sermons, even behind-the-scenes clips of my travels. And depending on the tier at which you join, you will also be invited to some live Q&A conversations that I have with my Patreon community. So what I want you to do is head over to patreon.com/Nona Not Nora to get signed up today. I want to see you in my community. Thanks for being here.